Well, there's some reports, and then the Iranians denied it, and then they may be passing messages through interlocutors to the United States. I mean, you never know with the Iranians what they're actually doing, but what I can tell you is what's happening in the battle is they're losing. As the president said, I think he was very diplomatic, and he said Iran is not winning this war. They're losing this war because Israel's determined to remove two existential threats to our country. I mean, remember, Iran is a country that openly calls and actively works to destroy Israel. And they're on a path to building nuclear weapons, and we want to remove that threat. We want to remove the ballistic threat. I'm sorry?
No, understood. So then, is it too late, is my question. Do you need to see the destruction of Iran's nuclear program, its nuclear facilities, before you ever consider going back to the table?
Well, let's remember what happened a couple months ago. The president talked about a 60-day timeline. I was with the prime minister when he went to Washington, and the president told the prime minister, look, he wants to give Iran a last chance to see if we can reach a deal. But what were the outlines of that deal is that Iran was going to have to dismantle its military nuclear capability. That's what was put on the table. And the president has been very clear about this from the beginning, not just the beginning of his presidency. He's been saying this for years. Iran must never have a nuclear weapon. And he's been very clear that Iran cannot have a nuclear enrichment capability, which is how you get the fuel for nuclear weapons. So then you don't have to really trust whether Iran has it or not. If they have no fuel for the car, then it's not a problem. And he gave it time, several weeks. His special envoy, Steve Witkoff, had several rounds of discussions, about 5 rounds of discussions. We were in close contact with them throughout, and they were very clear of what was going to be their red lines in a deal. And unfortunately, Iran thought that they could string these talks on forever and that there wasn't going to be any deadline. And it was clear to us in the last few days that there was no chance that Iran was going to agree to it. Will Iran agree to something else? Now, I don't know. But remember, one of their sites has already been dismantled by us. That's the Natanz enrichment facility. And we're also basically taking out their missile production factories as well. So we're going to go about our operation to remove these two threats. Whether Iran will decide to meet with the United States and agree to terms that they should have taken a month ago or 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago, that's up to Iran to decide.
Okay. All right. That's very important, Minister Dermer. I want to go a little bit further down that road with you, because we heard from National Security Advisor Hanegbi, who said that Israel can tackle Fordow, the enrichment site at Fordow, deep underground alone. The conventional wisdom here is that you need of the U.S. to help with that by way of bunker-busting bombs, the Moab included. Is the destruction, Minister, of Fordow the end game, and do you need U.S. help to do it?
I'm not going to get into operations, this or that operation. I hope by now people will not underestimate Israel's will and capability of doing something. It's doing some things when we start a military operation. You saw that with Hezbollah, with the beepers. You've seen what's happened in Gaza. You've seen what we've done as we're fighting this 7-front war. So I think it's safe to say that you shouldn't underestimate Israel's capability to deal with threats. What's important to understand, Joe, is that Israel started this operation to remove two threats to the very survival of Israel. We talked a little bit about the nuclear, but there's also the ballistic missile threat. Some of your viewers have probably seen those scenes from Israeli neighborhoods where you had a direct hit of a 1-ton missile. That's like a bus filled with explosives flying through the air and hitting a neighborhood. Now imagine a country the size of Israel, which is all the size of New Jersey, that Iran would fire 10,000 or 20,000 of these rockets. And they have plans to build 300 of these a month, 3,000 a year. You're going to have 10,000 every 3 years. This is not a threat that we can tolerate. So we've launched an operation to deal with both of those threats. And on day 4, I can tell you, we're ahead of schedule of where we want it to be. And we're going to win this war with Iran. And so what happens afterwards, hopefully, will turn the whole region to peace. Remember, we were dealing with the Abraham Accords in the first term, and I'd like in the second term of President Trump to expand that circle of peace.
Well, before we go that far, Minister, how far are you ahead of schedule? How far has the Iranian nuclear program been set back?
Well, it's day 4. We've taken out their main scientists. Iran has the equivalent of the Manhattan Project, that effort to build a bomb by the United States before World War II that ultimately led to victory in Japan. So Iran has this Manhattan Project, and the main scientists were all taken out in the first few minutes of this operation. And we've taken out information that they need for nuclear weapons, and then facilities like the Natanz enrichment facility, which is their main enrichment facility. There's a conversion facility that converts the uranium to the stuff that you need in order to produce a bomb. That was taken out. I mean, we're setting them back. We're hitting centrifuge manufacturing facilities, and we have a clear plan over the next several days to degrade and destroy their capabilities to produce and set them back several years. And in that sense, we're ahead of where we thought we would be on day 4 of this war. But we're going to achieve what we set out to achieve.
Minister Dermer, there's a report that President Trump vetoed an Israeli plan to kill Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Is that true?
I'm not going to get into any private conversations with U.S. officials. What I can tell you is the U.S. has been tremendous in the support that it's given Israel from the beginning of this war on defense. They have helped us with the Aegis ships to knock down these flying buses full of TNT that were landing on our cities, or that tried to land, were launched at our cities, I should say. They were helpful in the THAAD anti-missile system that you have. You also have American pilots in the air knocking down drones that are being launched at us from Iran. So we are deeply, deeply appreciative of everything that President Trump and his administration has done in order to defend and protect Israel. I mean, we're doing the job on offense and defense as well, but we appreciate everything that they have done to come to the defense of Israel. It's deeply, deeply appreciated, not just by the Prime Minister of Israel and the government of Israel, by all the people of Israel. We've never had a better friend in the White House than President Trump, and our greatest ally in the world is the United States of America. And I think there's an understanding, frankly, Joe, in America, and not just Israel, that when we are fighting Iran, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting an enemy of the United States. I mean, these people lead millions, these leaders in Iran, the tyrants of Tehran, they lead millions of people in chance of death to America. So when we're taking them on, we are fighting your fight. And actually, our victory will also be an American victory. And I think it will help turn the region into a different direction. I think you're going to see that.
Well,
a lot of the Gulf
US
states,
help?
and maybe they appear on your show, and maybe they'll be critical of that, and maybe they'll issue a pro forma condemnation. But believe me, in capitals throughout the Gulf and throughout the region, people who have lived under the shadow of Iran's campaign of carnage and chaos and terrorism throughout the region, they are rejoicing now. And my hope is that we're going to,
Are you asking the U.S. to get involved offensively?
No, I think the United States is going to have to do whatever is it sees, and the president is ultimately the one that makes that decision. Whatever it sees, it's in America's interest. And I have full faith and confidence that the president will make that decision, whatever he believes is in the American national interest. But I think one thing you should keep your eye on, Joe, is what is happening within Iran. Our fight is not with the Iranian people. We have no problem in Israel with the Iranian people, and America should not have a problem with the Iranian people. They're actually a very pro-American population, probably second to Israel in the entire Middle East. It's the regime, and that regime subjugates them and also terrorizes all of its neighbors, including our Arab neighbors, while calling for Israel's destruction and ultimately for America's destruction. Remember, we're the little Satan, and they call you the great Satan. So pay attention to what is happening inside Iran when you see the fires starting to spark against the regime. And believe me, Joe, the thing that is most concerning for the leader of Iran is that his people will turn on him and his regime, because after nearly a half century of tyranny, they've had it. You saw them come to the streets in 2009. You saw them go to the streets in 2022, and they may actually go now. And he's very, very worried about that. So we're going to wage our war to achieve our goals, but keep your eye on what the people of Iran are doing.
We will. Of course we will. You've made a number of references to what happens after this, Minister Dermer, and I'm curious to just extend that a little bit. Whether this conflict ends at the negotiating table or on the battlefield, however this happens, will it also bring an end to your war with Iranian proxies? Will it mean an end to fighting in Gaza?
Well, I mean, that's a very good question. A war was launched against us on October 7th by one of Iran's proxies, Hamas. And you see what we've done since then, when Iran basically opened many fronts against Israel. Hezbollah in the north, the Houthis in the south in Yemen, Shia militias in Iraq, various different Iranian proxies in Syria, and also directly from Iran itself. So we've been fighting this war, but look what we've done. We have crushed Hamas in Gaza, And we essentially have decapitated Hezbollah in Lebanon. Iran was this very powerful and dangerous octopus with all of these arms. And what happened is those arms, those octopus arms, have turned into T-Rex arms now, and we have cut them down to size. Now, in the wake of this war, you say, well, how is it going to end diplomatically? Well, you know, Japan ended diplomatically too. You just had a surrender ceremony. What was it, the USS Missouri, where you signed some documents. Now, we're not looking to occupy Iran. We don't have a territorial conflict with them. I don't think the United States is interested in putting boots on the ground anywhere they don't have to in the Middle East. That's not the question. Right. The question is, in the wake of this war, can we then make it clear to Iran that they have to end their support for terror proxies? They have to give up these ballistic missiles. They're in violation of international law, and that they have to end permanently any attempt for a military nuclear capability. They want a peaceful nuclear program. There are dozens of countries around the world that have nuclear reactors. They don't domestically enrich uranium, and they can do that. Those are the terms of what enable us, I think, to get to an end of the war and then to move on to the business of making peace and continuing where President Trump left off at the end of his first term when we made peace with 4 Arab states, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco. We should move that to other Gulf countries. And I think there'll be a lot of surprises that will come in the wake of this war when you're going to see actually peace deals start happening much faster than people think.
Okay. I want to ask you in our remaining moment, Minister, because it's important. We're seeing a lot of numbers here. I want to ask you about casualties and what's really happening on the ground. The National Emergency Service says at least 21 people identified as civilians have been killed in Iran's retaliatory strikes since Friday. Is that number still accurate?
I think that number now is up to 25. Unfortunately, I'm not certain. You know, when you fire these ballistic missiles into civilian areas, and they're doing it. Remember, we're targeting terrorists in Tehran. We have the power to simply, you know, carpet bomb whole cities. We don't do that. We're only targeting terrorists and trying to get the innocents in Tehran and elsewhere of Iran out of harm's way. We're telling people just today, we took out the National Broadcasting Service, which just, I'm telling the people of Iran, I think we're rejoicing over that, but we got people to evacuate all the areas around it. They're not telling us where they're going to fire. They want to kill as many people as possible, and they're slinging these huge flaming buses into downtown Tel Aviv. You see it on your television screens. So I think we're fortunate that the casualties have not been even more than 25, even though that it's a terrible a tragedy for each and every one of those families. But given what has been thrown at us and fired at us, I think it speaks to how the Israelis have acted under fire and what kind of resolve that they have. And they're running into their safe rooms, staying in the safe rooms, and acting with a great deal of discipline that our home front command is constantly encouraging them. Get into those safe rooms, because those are the places where it's really, really unlikely that they're going to be hurt. And we've seen terrible scenes of destruction, but unfortunately, fewer casualties than otherwise people would have expected.